Welcome to yet another video. In this video, we'll be doing the essay written by Raymond Williams, Culture is Ordinary. The purpose of this video is very simple. This is to give you an understanding of the basic idea in the essay Culture is Ordinary. Before I start, there is one disclaimer. See, if I were to teach this in an offline class to you, I will take maybe 5 to 6 hours to complete the essay. In online or in this mode of video, we don't have that much time. So what I have done is I have taken the essence of it. Okay, this is the juice of the essay Culture is Ordinary. So you will be getting the basic idea. So I recommend you to read the essay after you listen to this video if you have time. Before I start, there is a structure actually of this video. I'm not going in the what you may call in the traditional fashion. What I have done is I'm focusing on the main and important aspect of the essay and going towards the less important ones. This is done because just imagine if you don't have much time to watch this video, you could only watch for the first 5 minutes. I want to ensure that you get the maximum out of this video. If you are ready to learn from me, I have one more request to you. Please grab a paper and a pen and note down the points. It's a request. Okay, there are many people who watch videos, but they don't learn anything. I want you to be a learner, not a mere watcher of videos. And if possible, just follow the diagram. Actually, diagrams are very useful when we study because we remember visual data, not the other one. So that is why in all this memory trick people, they use visual aids to remember. So let's start. Before, would you like to know about me? I'm Pradeep Hariharan. I'm an assistant professor of English. And I know some of you are my students. If you're my student, I want you to make a comment, me, in the box, because it gives me a lot of happiness that my own students are watching my videos. Having said that, we start from the questions. Okay, what are the questions we can expect from this essay? Actually, I have taken 3 possible essays. Maybe, how does Williams prove that culture is ordinary? Secondly, critique the essay Culture is Ordinary. What is culture according to Williams? These are possible questions. I have not taken anything from the previous one or nothing. These are actually we need some questions before we start to look into any essay. So we'll be trying to answer these 3 questions. What is culture? Why culture is called ordinary? A kind of critique of the essay. And remember, before we go into this, every essay has an important point to make. Whether you study Wordsworth, Coleridge, they have an important point that has been discussed so far. So here also, Raymond Williams makes an important point in this essay, and he supports his arguments with what you may call a lot of examples. So if you look at this diagram, you can see that in the first part, I will tell you what this essay is all about. And secondly, I'll go on to what are the contributions of Raymond Williams. Thirdly, we will go into the 3 main arguments of the essay. That is a short summary. And we go into certain keywords of the essay and we will do a recap. Okay, so what is the essay is all about? As you can see that Culture is Ordinary, it's a self-explanatory title. The word culture brings us to our mind a lot of things, okay? And if you look at the English tradition from Matthew Arnold onwards to Eliot, they always try to separate 2 cultures in a society. Culture is something civilized, something high of value, and masses have another culture which is known as the popular culture or vulgar culture. So ultimately there is always a bifurcation of culture in every society. But when you come to the mid 1950s, Raymond Williams challenges this notion and he says that culture is not something elite or superficial, culture is ordinary. How does he prove this point? Let's see. Actually, he is trying to say the 4 points. What is the purpose of this essay? Actually, Raymond Williams wants to democratize our approach towards arts. Actually, what does he mean? If you look at arts, for many centuries, there is always a two-tier system. For example, if I give you my own example, this is not taken from the essay. If I say that I don't enjoy Bharatanatyam, Kathakali or Carnatic music, people, the so-called people who enjoy it say that it is not for you because you are popular. You only like film music or you like only folk music. So what I'm trying to say is that, or Raymond Williams is trying to say that something is always preserved for a tiny minority. Only they can have it, they can enjoy it. Others, the majority of us, are like the ordinary people. Our tastes are low, and some people, their tastes are high. This is the notion is challenged by Raymond Williams. He says that we have to look at any art form, whether it's literature, painting, sculpture, whatever it is, in a democratic manner. It is for everyone because the central argument he says is that the culture is the product of a society. It is produced by all, it is not by a select few. And remember, the second important point is that the essay was written in 1958. It is an answer or a reply to T.S. Eliot's book, which was published in 1948. In 1948, T.S. Eliot wrote in the tradition of Matthew Arnold a book titled Notes Towards Culture. The central argument of the book was this. Eliot believed that it is through family the culture is passed on. That means if you are born in a rich elite family, we will get that culture, and if you are born in a poor family, for generations you will have that culture only. Okay, so culture is connected to family. And the second point Eliot believed was there is a tiny majority and it is their duty to preserve a superior culture for a civilized society. It is they who ensure that the others are civilized. Okay, and his definition of culture was based on Christianity, values from Christianity. So in other words, Eliot was trying to project an elite culture, a high-class culture, a superior culture from the right-wing point of view. And the third point, which I already said, Eliot believed that it is a duty of a select few to preserve the so-called culture. But when you come to Raymond Williams, he say that culture is a way of life. Actually, he said that this is a central point. Please note this down. There are two types of culture, or two ways of seeing a culture. The first one is an experienced culture, and the second one is a represented culture. The culture we experience is everyday life, okay, but what is represented in literature? It is something of high moralistic value which we don't experience. Okay, so the point Raymond Williams wants to say is that culture is something that we experience. It is not something given to us from the top. Okay, so these are the first 4 points I want you to note. He calls for a democratic approach to arts. It's a reply to T.S. Eliot's notion of culture. Eliot has taken from F.R. Leavis, Matthew Arnold, culture is something thought of something the best. That is the kind of argument Matthew Arnold gave. And also, Raymond Williams wants to say that culture is something, a way of life. And what is the importance of Raymond Williams? Raymond Williams is regarded as a kind of a father. I'm sorry if there are any feminists. I don't use that word in a patriarchal sense. Father means someone who initiated, who pioneered, or who came up with a different idea of culture that which we have not heard of. And there are two great influences for Williams, obviously Marxist influence in the 1950s when he studied at Oxford, and he stood for equality. He wanted equal opportunities. Remember, Raymond comes from a working class Welsh family, and many of his people did not get the kind of opportunities that the other people in London got. So he found that some people or some sections of the society are always marginalized or restricted from getting the highest education. And how he defines culture. Actually, you have to write this in your exam. This is how he defines culture in the essay. This is taken from the essay. Culture is the product of the whole people, the product of whole man's committed personal and social experience. So he connects culture with experience. That is why, if you look at the keywords, structure of feeling, which that is one of the keywords of the essay, structure of feeling, which in 1976 he has written a book on it. He has developed it. Okay. And one of the central contributions of Raymond Williams is a book which is known as Keywords, in which he watches the vocabulary. It's a very interesting book, how words change its meaning, how culture changes. That is another point of this essay. He says culture is not something fixed, it is evolving. For example, if I give you my example, the culture into which I was born was without television, without phones, without mobile phones, computers, nothing. But the culture I'm presently living has everything of it. Okay, so the culture is fastly changing, fastly evolving. It is not something fixed as we may think. And so these are important points about Williams, and also some how he defines culture. Now go on to the another part of what are the three central arguments of the essay. Let's see the first one. This is a point I have already told you. Culture is not the preserve of a tiny minority. Okay, culture is for everyone. It is not for something else. And secondly, he says that he studied at Oxford. And he says by being an Oxfordian, he didn't lose his Welsh culture, the culture from he came, or the working class culture in which he was born. So he says that you can get into another culture is a rubbish idea. Okay, you are born in a community, in a caste, or in a particular part in a geographical region in which you get some experienced culture. That is the reality. It's not something that you aspire for or what is represented. Our culture is our reality. That is what he is trying to say. So remember, this is a reply to T.S. Eliot, that culture is something to be preserved, but he says that culture is the everyday reality. So in that angle, you have to see it. And what is the second argument of Raymond Williams? Let's see. He says that in every society has developed its own common meanings and also some discovered meanings expressed towards. Coming back to this point again, actually what he's trying to say that there are two meanings. In every society we communicate, we have established a system, every society a system of meanings, and at the same time there is a creative side of the society which wants to create something new songs, new music, new books, new things in painting. So there are two types of culture. One is the everyday reality culture, and a culture which is a creative side, an expressed side, a represented side. And there is a big difference between what is experienced and what is expressed. Okay, and culture, as this again a repeat of the first point, has two senses. One is everyday culture and in creative arts. Then the next point he says is that culture is a heavily conditioned world. For example, when you started studying cultural studies, or even now, your notion of culture is something that has been conditioned. If while studying this essay, if Raymond Williams says culture is ordinary, culture is everyday life, you're not going to believe it. Even I was not ready to believe it when I read it for the first time. So the point is that we have been conditioned that culture is something like this. Culture is something like that. William says, no. Our everyday reality is our culture. Okay. And he says culture is very ordinary. And a desire to learn is something natural, something pleasant. Actually, this is where he again targets T.S. Eliot. Eliot said that only you need an intellectual mind to understand the tradition. You have to study history. You have to connect with the people from the past, and it is a continuation. Raymond Williams says, no, 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 no. Actually, as human beings, if you're watching this video, there is a desire in you to learn. It is natural. Okay, a desire to imitate is natural. Actually, how did we learn the language? Through the ear, through imitating our parents and people around us. We learn everything by looking at it and imitating it. Same way, culture is also a kind of imitation. And a desire to learn it's natural. It's not something reserved for some pure people. So this is the second argument he makes. And in the third argument is very important. Here he speaks about, in the essay, the two influences he had. The first one, he says he was influenced by Marx, but not Marx in that sense. Actually, he says when he studied Marxism in Oxford, he was taught capitalist Marxism. Okay, actually how capitalists define Marxism, not the Marxism of Karl Marx. One of the important points he says that he learned from Marx, actually he doesn't completely agree with Marxism. Actually, he has a disagreement with many aspects of Marxism. But he says that culture must be defined based on the underlying system of production. By that, he means that actually, what is the culture I'm having? I'm having a middle class culture which I inherited from my parents. Okay, so the means of production means where I was born and with whom I interact with. So, and secondly, he found that education is something restricted to a large class of people. Marx says that we don't get equality when it comes to education. Not all get equal education. It's some part is privileged, preserved for some people. So he says that it must be what you may call equally distributed to all. Remember, presently we get education in equality, but the time when he was writing, there was a large chunk of working class people who were denied of education. From that point he is writing, and he says that if you live in a capitalist society, it produces a capitalist culture. For example, in America, what is the culture they try to say? They say that if you work hard, you will become rich. And when you study Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman, we understand that entire life he was working hard, but he could not make anything. And if you look around the people around you, you will find most of them are working hard, but how many of them really improve in their life in quantum numbers? They may slowly improve, obviously, but not a quantum leap is happening. So, but this is what capitalist society teaches us. You work hard, follow the things, follow the dream, you will become a millionaire. How many? Is that true? These are the questions he is trying to raise. And this point I already mentioned, culture is bound up with economics and class. This is what Williams is trying to say. His second influence was F.R. Lewis. Remember, when we go to F.R. Lewis actually defines culture in the lines of T.S. Eliot and Matthew Arnold. Actually, F.R. Lewis was also a defender of traditional culture. He was against the modern culture. Okay, this happens in every society. Even, for example, your parents may say, this is not the way you have to dress, this is not the way you have to talk. Actually, there is always a pull of this tradition and modern. It happens. And F.R. Lewis was a pessimist. He feared that industrial society and the spread of American culture will destroy the real culture, the elite culture. Okay. But what Raymond Williams likes in F.R. Lewis is that Williams said that literature is important for its moral effects. And F.R. Lewis said that literature is a reflection of society. So what we understand is, the third point argument is that here culture is viewed from an academic perspective, and he looks at culture from the Marxian and F.R. Lewis point of view. In the Marxian view, he says that culture is the product of the economics, okay, and the class. That is why we have different cultures in different society. And secondly, he takes F.R. Lewis says that literature is very important as a reflection of the society. It's not a preserver of a culture. It's a reflection of the society. That is the point he takes from F.R. Leavis. Now we move on to the key words of this essay. What are the two key words to take away from? One is structure of feeling. Actually, culture is always connected with thinking. But in this essay, Raymond Williams says that culture is something emotional. Okay, that is why he calls it as structure of feeling, not structure of thought. Generally, you think that from Matthew Arnold onwards, culture is connected with high thinking. But Raymond Williams says is that culture is what I feel. It connects to my emotion. That is why when you see an Indian flag uh, in a cricket match, you connect it with it and you feel proud of it. Okay, so same way, another point he tries to make very important is that we live in an expanding culture. As I said already, culture is not fixed. So these are some of the things. Now we will just recap it, what we have learned. We started by saying that how he defines culture. He said culture, he calls for a democratic approach towards culture. This essay is written as a reply to T.S. Eliot's notion of culture. Culture, he says that it's what we experience every day. And in the second point, we learned that how he defines culture, his influence, and his important book, Keywords. And three arguments is that culture is not preserved for tiny minority. And there are two cultures. One, he says the experienced one, and one is the represented one. And the second argument is that in every society has some kind of meanings and everyday life, that is feelings, and something that is created, that is represented. And culture is a heavily conditioned word. And to learn is natural, that is Williams says. And his two influences, Marx and Leavis. From Marx, he learned that culture is connected with economics and class. Actually, there is a spelling error. I'm sorry. Please, actually, type it very randomly. Right now, I notice. I'm sorry about it. And from Leavis, he says that literature is important not as a preserver of culture, but rather as a reflection of society. And the two key words we learn is that structure of feeling. We need not have to connect structure with thought, but with feelings. And we live in an expanding culture. So this is what you may call a short summary of the essay. I think you enjoyed it. And if you have any doubts or if you have any valuable comments, please just note it in the comment box, because it helps me a lot in creating future videos. I hope I helped you in understanding this, and thank you once again for watching this. And if you want to connect with me, I have created a special Telegram group, and there is an FB group exclusively. You can join them. I will share the links in the description box, only if you're interested to connect with me. So I'll see you in another video. Until then, thank you very much.